Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video we are going to be doing the D&D book tag. Alright, before you get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what is an auto-buy author that you have. This is a tag originally created by Jim at The Creepy Geek and Ashley at Ashley's Bookish Life, and I'll put links to those ladies in the description down below. However, I was tagged by Mel at a book fiend named Mel, and I'll put a link to her video in the cards up above. If it's not immediately obvious from the title, the inspiration for this tag is D&D. I haven't officially played in a long time. I want to get back into playing. It just requires more time than I've been willing to dedicate to it, unfortunately. That said, I have picked up a fair amount about D&D, so thanks to Mel for tagging me, even though I'm not technically a Dungeons and Dragons person. But let's jump right into the questions. First up, everyone's dead. A character with a tragic backstory. I mean, of course one prompt has to be inspired by a TPK. I feel like a lot of the times I use the same books over and over again, so I'm determined to try and make my answers for these more books that I've been reading recently and probably haven't talked about before. And one that immediately came to mind for a tragic backstory was 𝗖cie 𝗁𝗁 from One of Us Knows by Alyssa Cole. Ken suffers from DID, and I mean, if you know anything about dissociative identity disorder, usually it comes about due to a severe piece of trauma and allows for the person to handle that trauma and those memories, which is true for Ken as well. And we do get some exploration of that background, what she remembers, and it is rough. However, the fact that she does have DID is an element of the story that was very cool here, where she and her alters have to try and figure out not only how they became caretaker at this creepy island, but also how they're connected to this island. And then when a person eventually dies, they also have to figure out who is responsible for that, because everybody is blaming Ken. I read this one for an anticipated releases vlog a little bit ago, so I'll put a link to that in the cards where you can see me experiencing this wild ride of a book. Next question. Roll Persuasion With Advantage, an auto-buy author. I have a few of these. I do believe Ava Reed has officially become an auto-buy author for me. Everything that I've read from them, I've really enjoyed. Even their one book that I only gave a 3.5 star, I still really enjoyed the writing and my reading experience of the story. I also must mention TJ Klune. I do still have a fair amount of his backlist I want to dive into. Pretty much at this point, if Klune writes it, I assume I'm going to enjoy it. I also must mention Sarah Hogle. Her romances are just perfect for me. They hit my funny bone so well. I know when I pick them up that I'm going to be having a fun, good time. And then of course I must mention 𝗖cie 𝗁𝗁. I mean, We Hunt the Flame and We Free the Stars are two of my favorite fantasies. Recently read A Tempest of Tea and also greatly enjoyed that. I just really enjoy her writing style and the way she creates her characters and the dynamics between those characters. I'll probably buy anything she writes. Next question. Me and the Boys Gonna Mess You Up, an ensemble cast you love. One that's not a recent read, but did come to mind for this is the whole crew in the Bright Falls series by Ashley Herring Blake. So the first book being Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I really enjoyed that one. But then the more we see of this little friend group that we follow in the next two books, I just adored everybody here. Iris is absolutely my favorite. Delilah is probably a close second, but I also adored Jordan from the second book. I mean, this little group of friends was just so much fun to follow, and I really enjoyed seeing more of the prior book relationships in the later books. Even though they weren't the focus, we still got to see a little bit of their romance on the sidelines. It's just a super cute series across the board. And speaking of super cute series, I also have to mention the family from Spy Family. This probably is not the perfect one to showcase because these guys on the front are not part of the family. Here we go. Lloyd, Yor, and Anya are just so stinking much fun. I adore the fact that Anya is determined to ensure their family's success, which is such an odd way to put it, but her father is a spy and she does her best to try and help him with his mission while also trying to cover for her mother, who is an assassin and is terrified that Lloyd will figure this out. They're just so much fun. I love the family here. It's so stinking cute. And then finally, I did want to mention Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki, because I would argue, 4 most important characters of this series I just grew to care about so much, and I wanted each of them to be happy in the life we were seeing them create for themselves, and also the little found family that develops here. By the end of this book, I really adored all of them and just wanted nothing but the best for them. Next question, and I love this one. I rolled a 1, a character that tries their best but keeps keeps failing. Shout out to my sister-in-law. Unfortunately for her, she always has the worst rolls. First person who came to mind was January from the 10,000 Doors of January by 𝗖cie his𝘁. I am so sorry to Mel who tagged me in this because I know she really enjoyed this book. It was not for me, unfortunately. I do have a reading vlog that will be coming out for it, I think next month. January was a very frustrating heroine for me to follow. She just felt very naive, and also once she gets this magical ability, she seemed very unimaginative. It was so underutilized in her hands. And I was genuinely wondering by the end of this book if she was allergic to making a plan, because there were so many people in her corner who could help her, but she constantly just kept running into things on her own, thinking she knew what was best. She could figure this out. It would all go well, and it wouldn't. January really drove me up a wall with this book. It was not for me. Next question. Roll To Tame The Floof, a book with a dangerous creature you'd love to have as a pet. I adore this one. And I think one that would be very cool is a Volca from, I think we saw it in Out of the Shadows by Justina Ireland, a Star Wars novel. We see a person who has a pet Volca, which is basically this cat with horns and their electricity that runs through their horns. Super cool, but also really cute, and she was very protective of her owner. Yes, I would love to see more Volcas. I also would love to have one. Next question. DM rolls unexpectedly, a book that surprised you. For this, I'm gonna go with Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina, and I'll tell you, the reason it surprised me is because when I hit the halfway point of this, it was so mid. I really was just take it or leave it, considered DNFing, but I decided to push through. And honestly, when I finished this book, I was so shocked that this was the same story because I was enthralled in the second half. I really think the issue for me between those two comes down to the fact that the start of this book has this alternating timeline before and after a major event. And once that stopped in the latter half of the book, where we only were focused on the after timeline, I was way more invested. I was way more engaged in the book. Yeah, like I said, I wasn't thinking I would like this so much at the end when I hit the halfway point. I really was thinking this was gonna be like a 3-star maybe. Then I finished it and it came out to a solid 4. Next question. I would like to rage, a character with anger issues. I had a hard time with this one. But I think looking at my shelves, one I haven't talked about in a while, and I do believe could fit into this prompt, is 𝗖cie from To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. She is very angry, but it's also totally warranted because she's a siren who is captured by a prince who is known for killing sirens. It's kind of understandable why she's a bit pissed off with all of the people involved in the story at the beginning. But that also kind of tied into why I really liked her, because 𝗖cie is so the antithesis of like a traditional princess, especially with this being a Little Mermaid retelling. She's just not what you picture when you think of Ariel. And so that's why I liked 𝗖cie so much. Next question, Thrust For Seduction. I love this. A spicy book. I could probably talk about like any romance book I've read lately. The most recent one was The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This wasn't like outlandishly spicy. I think I'd maybe give it like a 3 chili peppers. It was decent. I would have loved more, but good times were had in the bed of a truck. So, you know, I'll still say this constitutes a spicy book. Next question. How do you want to do this? A book with a satisfying ending. This one I have to go with A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid, particularly because of the moment at the end where Effie gets to stick it to the men in academia. Oh, it's just so satisfying to read. I loved that scene so much. I also just want to talk about this one because y'all, we are getting a sequel. Did not see that coming. Cannot freaking wait for it. I want more of these characters. I want them just making each other happy, but also like the beautifully tragic lines that Ava Reid writes for her romances. Phenomenal, and I cannot wait for more. Then for the last question, gather your party, tag 3 friends. Similar to Mel, I went with people that I've either heard talk about D&D or I feel like would enjoy D&D. So Sam at Sam Donovan, fairly certain I've heard her talk about playing in a campaign before. I know for a fact Laura at Laura's Library Card has. And then I'm not sure if Kirsten at Reading Nymph has, but if she doesn't, Kirsten, I definitely think you would enjoy D&D. All right, and on that note, that is it for today, y'all. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me a dice emoji in the comments. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me, linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!